Imagine waking up, knowing there's a chance you won't survive the day. Not because of war, not because of crime, but because of the air around you. This was Europe in the 1300s, during the Black Death. It began far from the cities of Europe, carried silently along trade routes, moving from one place to another, unseen. By the time it reached Europe in 1347, it was already too late. Ships arrived at port, but something was wrong. Many of the sailors on board were already dead, and those still alive were dying. Their bodies were covered in strange swellings, their skin darkened, their breathing shallow and weak. No one understood what they were seeing, but the disease had already arrived. At first, it spread slowly. A few people in a town would fall sick, then more and more, until suddenly, entire neighborhoods were infected. The symptoms were horrifying. It often began with a fever, a deep, burning heat that wouldn't go away. Then came the pain. Swollen lumps, known as buboes, began forming under the skin, in the neck, the armpits, the groin. They grew larger and darker until they turned black. The flesh around them began to rot. The smell was unbearable. People could tell someone was infected before even seeing them. And once the symptoms appeared, death usually followed within days. There was no cure, no treatment, no understanding. Imagine watching someone you love slowly fall apart, knowing there is nothing you can do, and knowing you might be next. Fear spread faster than the disease itself. People stopped trusting each other. Neighbors avoided neighbors. Friends abandoned each other. In some cases, even family members left their loved ones behind to save themselves, because being close to someone meant risking your own life. Doctors tried everything they could think of. Some believed the disease came from bad air, so they carried flowers or wore masks filled with herbs. Others believed it was a punishment from God, so people prayed. They marched through streets, begging for forgiveness. But the deaths continued. Nothing worked. Cities became places of horror. The streets, once full of life, grew silent. Shops closed. Markets disappeared. Church bells rang constantly, marking death after death. Bodies were everywhere. At first, families buried their own. But soon, there were too many. Mass graves were dug. Large pits filled with bodies, stacked one on top of another. No names, no ceremonies, just death. In some cities, carts moved through the streets every morning, collecting bodies. Like garbage. Imagine waking up and seeing bodies outside your door. Imagine stepping over the dead just to survive another day. Some people tried to escape. They fled to the countryside, hoping distance would save them. But the disease followed. It didn't matter where you went. It didn't matter who you were. Rich or poor, powerful or weak, young or old. The Black Death didn't discriminate. Entire villages were wiped out. Some were left completely empty. No survivors, just abandoned homes and silence. At its peak, thousands of people were dying every single day. Society began to collapse. There weren't enough workers. Food became scarce. Law and order started to break down. Some people turned to crime. Others gave up completely, believing the end of the world had come. And in a way, it had. Because the world they knew was gone. By the time the plague slowed, over 25 million people in Europe were dead, nearly half the population. Think about that. Every second person, gone. Families destroyed, communities erased, a generation lost. But the most terrifying part was the uncertainty. No one knew when it would end. No one knew if they would survive. Every cough, every fever, every moment of weakness could be the beginning of the end. Imagine living like that, every single day, waiting, watching, hoping you're not next. And even when the plague finally faded, the fear remained, because something like that doesn't just disappear. It leaves a mark on the world, on history, and on the people who survived it. This was the reality of the Black Death. Not just a disease, but one of the darkest chapters in human history.